sound's working now. For some reason I can't get the little video to work, but I think this one's working. So I'll manage the webcam separately here if I have to. Okay. Seems like that's working now. Yeah, so we're a little slow getting started today, and that's because the filament on the SEM burned out on Friday, and I had to replace it. So that was sort of like a bit of a scramble. Actually, I don't know where I did with it. It's around here somewhere. I thought maybe I could just show it, but oh, I could show a different one, I suspect. I gotta throw some gloves on, hang on. As long as I'm showcasing some things, if you're curious what a SEM filament looks like, actually looks like this. So it's just basically like a light bulb filament. It's a piece of tungsten that's between two metal posts, and then this thing that's around the outside is kind of like a ceramic or plastic thing that it's seated in. And then it just, like a light bulb, you know, it's got two electrodes, and basically the energy passes through it and it creates electrons and also heats up. So this one's brand new. The burnt out one, like I said, I don't know where I put it. I probably threw it out. But I have to disassemble the SEM and then reassemble the SEM a little bit in order to prepare it, and then it actually, it's right here. So you saw what it was supposed to look like when it was not burned out, and here's one where it's actually burnt. So you can see the posts are darkened. Sometimes the filament itself, the little piece of metal that goes between them, will actually break, just like a light bulb filament. And so this is the source of my delay today, right? So this, plus I was running a little I was in a little meeting with some of the Spirit University professors, teachers. And so I was doing two things at once, and now I'm also doing two things at once because we need to prep the samples still. So I do have, let's see, this stuff that's in the middle right here, that's the black one among these ones that still have the sticker on them, the sticker cover on them. That one I put on this morning I mounted it onto my bike helmet. And then I rode my bike around the stadium. I noticed that the trees weren't particularly like inflorescent right now. So maybe there won't be a ton of tree pollen in there. On the SEM? I don't know. Maybe we could do that. I'd have to figure out how to mount it. It's not really designed to be mounted that way. It's taller than the stubs are, but I'll keep it, and then maybe we'll look at it Wednesday or something. So yeah, so it's a bit of a scramble, and I'm still scrambling a little bit, but I did get these pictures from today. I'm gonna grab them real quick so I can show them to you. Here is what I put together this morning. Oops, that picture's way too big right now. I need to adjust that size on it somehow. Let's see. Try to get it down into something reasonable. That's just a super close-up view of my helmet at the moment. It's not particularly helpful. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. This is my ingenious design. So it's Play-Doh. And I took a little bit of the Play-Doh, stuffed it in one of the holes on my bike helmet, and then I plugged it with one of these SEM stubs. And then I took the tape cover over the top off of it, and then I just rode around with the sticker off of it so that it was collecting whatever was in the air, dust, pollen, whatever. And I went around the stadium twice, and I went up and down the block a couple of times to try to see if I could get enough stuff to collect on it. And let's see, I can see if I can show you some other bits. Hang on, I have one more picture, which is me with the actual helmet on. There, it's on my head. It's probably not like you pictured it, Pacific Plankton, with a beer cooler connected to my head, but that's just a selfie with the sticker pulled off of it, ready to basically collect pollen. And yeah, and that's how I rode around the neighborhood. I don't think anybody noticed that I had the SEM stub mounted into my helmet, but as long as I was doing ingenious designs. Also, I didn't check to see what the pollen index was for today. It might not be super high. So, but this was fun, and I got to do a little bike riding. So, why pink? It's just the Play-Doh that I could most easily access. It was not a design choice. The first one I opened was dried out Play-Doh, so the second one I opened was the pink one, and you know, it was still flexible enough I could stuff it into my bike helmet. So it's not like I was trying to make a statement. I was just in a hurry. And then I also, right after I got the filament working, I ran outside and collected some flowers, which we're going to look at the pollen from today. That's my intention anyway. Also, hello, Anna. And here's a little bouquet of flowers that I collected. Sorry, it's super awkward trying to rescale this on this computer, but now you can see it. It also rained in between when I started fixing the filament and when I went out to collect the stuff. So there's a little bit of a bunch of different kinds of flowers in here. And I'm gonna pluck off the pollen bits and some of the flower itself. And yeah, so some dandelions. Let's see. There's a dandelion. Oh, I gotta hide the actual picture now so I can show you the images. So there's a dandelion, and I'll put some dandelion on. Hopefully, get some pollen and pieces of dandelion, and then I also collected the dandelion seeds. So I'll try to stick those on the same little SEM stub. And this one is a daffodil, right? So the daffodil with the bright orange ring around the top. And then this one is a lilac, and it smells great, by the way. So I thought if it smells a lot, maybe it has pollen that I could pick out. And then I don't know what these ones are. I'm not a flower expert, but this was on a tree, so I guess this is the dogwood. I don't know. Is it dogwood? Someone out there might be a plant expert. I'm not great with tree flowers. That's another tree flower right there. Haven't seen any narcissus. Okay. And then there's some little red tree flowers as well. Pink. And this one was a ground flower. This little guy right there. I'm not sure what that one is either. It's not a dogwood. Okay. Let's see. It was sunny and warm there yesterday. You had an adventure. A swan was reported on a pond. So you rode for a bike ride to see it. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what this little pink thing is. I really don't know my flowers that well, to be honest. I store that information in my wife's brain for the most part. If I need to know what a flower is, I usually ask her. Yeah, they look like apple to me, like a prunum of some type, but I don't know that that tree makes apples. So, all right. So my plan was the one that's in the middle, that's dark here, is I'm trying to find the center of this camera. It's looking a little sideways. Was to peel off the sticker. That one in the middle, as I mentioned, is from the bike ride, so it might not have a lot of pollen on it. And then I could peel off these stickers in order. So if I could manage to get the sticker off, it would be good. And then we can just take bits and pieces of these things and mount them. And then we'll go straight from the mounted version to the sputter coder and into the SEM. So there's, if I can get the dandelion to do what I want, that would be good. Dandelion seed. And the little sail that carries the dandelion out. And then just gonna stuff some of the flower top onto it to pat them down. It's also a little wet, which doesn't help. And then just pluck a little bit of it from the dandelion itself. We're highly technical here. That's how we roll. Okay. So, at least in theory, I should have some pollen and a little bit of plant material from the dandelion. It's in step number 1, and that's number 7 in the middle, if you're curious. How exciting, I'm looking at dandelions. Well, do you like dandelions? Or are you making are you being sarcastic? I can't tell. Maybe you hate dandelions. And let's see. The next one coming up here will be this little lilac, because I know what it is. Lilac is one of the flowers that I've got a pretty good handle on. They smell great, and they, it's a little wet, but I don't know if just patting it onto here will get enough of the pollen off of it. But that's my plan right now. It's just to sort of pat it. It's like I got a bunch of the water to come out of it. Pat them onto there a little, and then I'm going to kind of deconstruct the flower. And then put the flower, hopefully a piece of it, like right in there on the stub. So, again, highly technical. So number 2 is lilac. And then I think we'll do the daffodil next, because I also can recognize a daffodil. So here's the actual daffodil that we'll be sampling. And these things have just like a ton of pollen on those little stamen. And I'm just going to transfer one of those just directly on there. Oops, it's a little off the screen. And I'm sure we're going to get some pollen from that, because I can actually see the little yellow bits on there. That one, there's a daffodil. You're not good at virtual sarcasm? Those, I really wanted to collect some of the spring beauties from my yard. I just didn't get around to it. So I think this one that's in the pile here is kind of like those, though. Something that we could look at. So part of the issue with getting the SEM up and running is that I needed to, so I'm going to do this mystery flower next to somebody out there knows what this one is. You can let us know. It's going into, let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, slot 4 is this mystery beastie tree flower. If you know what it is, you can just say it into chat, and we'll take your word for it. I can tell you it was collected from a tree. Outside of that, I didn't look closely to see what the tree is. But it was right outside of campus here, right outside of the building, so I'm just deconstructing the whole flower onto the stub, and hopefully that will work okay. And then we'll also do a little bit of the petal so that I don't get confused and think it was something else. I should have ran and grabbed some of the magnolias, because there are some magnolias on campus that are blooming, and they're dropping all their flowers, you know, those big pink leaf flowers. And yeah, I didn't collect any of the leaves for that one, I'm sorry. And then actually got super slippery because I walked on the sidewalk where they were, and it's like when people stepped on them, you could see impressions of their like whatever shoes they were wearing, like on the actual flower blossoms that were on the sidewalk. And then like I walked across and I was like, oh, these are really slippery. And then I came back later in the day, and somebody else must have slipped on them or something, because the maintenance people had come through and cleaned all the flower petals off the sidewalk. But there were enough of them on there that it was kind of dangerous. So this one I do think is a crabapple, so I'm just gonna pretend that I know that that's what it is. But like that's what I thought it was based on the flowers that I saw here. They look like prunum of some type. And crabapple's probably the most likely target for campus for prunum. Ah, stuck to my finger. I've got fancy gloves on, so I'm trying to reduce my contact with the materials that are going into the SEM. It's not because anything I'm handling is dangerous or anything like that. So, but I can just pull a couple of these little stamen off and hopefully stick them on there. And that's likely to ensure that we'll catch some of the pollen from these guys. And I've got 2 flowers left here to pick through. Yeah, maybe on Wednesday I'll get the magnolias, and then some of the spring beauties from my yard, and I have a bunch of violets in our yard as well. They're just going crazy right now, and that would be another thing that would be good to collect, because I know what it is. So I don't know, what do you guys think? The pink ones here, tree flower that's pink, or this ground flower that's white? Because I don't think I can fit both of them on there. So I'll take your advice on which you think we should do. And then the white ones, okay. I'm going with whatever Anna tells me to. She's my boss in most things when it comes to the SEM. I'm just gonna put the whole thing on there, like a whole piece of it. Ah! Decided to come with my tweezers. Alright, so there's our collection of things. I could figure out where the camera went. It's backwards and upside down, so when I go that way, I keep thinking it's gonna recenter. Alright, so that's our stuff. The thing in the center again is from a bike ride that I did with the stuff attached to my helmet, the pin, and then dandelion, a lilac, a daffodil, whatever the white tree flower was, and the apple, and then the white ground flower. You're hoping for the other way around. I don't know what that means. So that's what we have for the flowers, and I'm gonna, let's see, I gotta do something here. I'm gonna turn off the little web camera that's recording everything here and get this out of my way. So that's just a document scanner that I'll use for showcasing things. But it makes a nice vertical camera because it just holds in place. And then I've got a little bit of flower debris here on my desk, actually quite a bit of flower debris, to be honest. But, you know, if I contaminate somebody's samples with a little bit of pollen, that's their problem. Okay, so we've got this collection of SEM stubs, and the next step I need to do is actually put them in the, yeah, I'm sure there's pollen all over the place. Not my problem. It's my stuff comes into here gold-plated already, so that's their problem. All right, so I do need to try to get a handle on showcasing the other parts of what we're doing today, and that requires me to droid cam. I do not want to give you any kind of a recommendation, droid cam. Right now, I'm busy. Let's see, so this number is not right. 102, 118. 183. I think I just want the video. And if I switch to the droid cam, is it working? It seems like maybe it's not. It told me to restart. Hang on. No, I don't want to do that. We're just having an entertaining day here with like a little bit of chaos all the time. 180. Alright. Now it seems to be working. So we'll switch to the droid cam mode. And we'll just do some stuff here in the actual lab. So these are the samples, and I'm going to slap them into this thing, which is the sputter coat. And to do so, actually, need these special tweezers. The camera is dark. And then I'm just going to, you probably can't hear me very well, so I'm going to try to speak up. Transfer them in and keep them in clockwise numerical order. I'm going counterclockwise actually. So that we don't lose track of which ones are which. And when we did this sort of pollen thing last fall, and I have my lab assistants who have been doing most of this part. They didn't track what each flower was, so we didn't have that sort of magical relationship between what we were seeing, what we actually collected. We didn't know what they were. So we're avoiding that problem of keeping everything in numerical fashion. I need to set this down for a second, so I apologize. Some parts of the process require 2 hands. There's a little table here. It's pinched if you're not careful. Also, I believe that will make 2 things. I'm sure it doesn't get pinched. So, this is just a little bell jar, and this is the vacuum chamber. On the SEM, or not the SEM, the spider bird. Then all of our samples are inside there doing thing with them. And then, so what we would normally do is turn the pump on, and what it's doing is just pumping the air out of this little bell jar right here. And once all of the air gets pumped out, then we can turn on the electrodes that basically turn the gold-plated metal on the inside, at the top, into plasma. And that little plasma cloud will then electroplate the samples with gold. And we're doing that because they're covered with their plant material, and they're not very conductive to electricity, but we need things to be kind of conductive to electricity. So there's a little disco thing that will spin the samples around, which is nice. And also, because the samples are a little bit wet from being outside, the vacuum won't be very good, because it has to also pump the moisture out of the air at the same time. So, thank you for the follow, Mr. Magawai. So normally we wait till it sort of pumps down a little bit further, but I'm going to go ahead and do it at this level because I think that because of the water, it probably won't pump any more out. It probably will reach some sort of minimum, and then we just have to rely on the fact that it's going to function at slightly suboptimal conditions, and it means we probably need to run the sputter coater a little longer than normal. So hopefully it won't mean that our SEM itself won't pump down. And then we turn on the sputter coater. So what it's doing now is actually looks prettier when I turn off all the lights. So that at the top, up there, is the gold. There's a piece of gold in there, foil, a little bit of gold foil. And the purple that you're seeing is actually gold plasma. And there's a small cloud of it. You can see that the top has kind of got that cloudy pink haze to it. Part of that's some junk on the bell jar, but the cloud itself is actually a plasma cloud, and it's come down over top of the samples, and now it's coating them with gold. So it doesn't need to be done in the dark. It's easier for you to see if I have it in darkness. So it seems like that microphone is pegging just a little bit. So normally what I would do is let it sit like this for about 1.5 minutes, and it's just going to cover over all of those samples with a little bit of gold, hopefully. So gold sputter deposition. Yeah, that's what you're seeing. We're having a little sputter coating party, and it's like a disco ball in there. It spins around, and then when you pull stuff out, it comes out in gold. So, Did I get raided or something while I was busy like off on the side? I see last miles is on the channel. I don't know what happened. Oh, I did get raided. Oh, I'm sorry guys, I've been kind of, I'm away from my computer because I'm trying to showcase the sputter coating process. So thank you for the raid. And yeah, so we're looking into the actual plasma cloud right there. And hopefully it's putting a little gold deposition right on our actual samples. And you know, it's spin around so that the samples get relatively evenly coated with gold. So that's why it's doing the little disco dance. It's not that it needs to spin. In fact, it's going to be a little bit more even coverage on the samples as a result of the spinning around. And I don't know, I guess it's probably been long enough. Normally I time it, but my phone is my timer and my phone is also my droid cam. So I'm going based on how awkward I feel about how long it's been in there. So yeah, that's the sputter coating process. And all of our samples are still in the order that I pulled them out in. So I'm going to reverse the steps, which is basically just turning off the sputter coater and the valve and the pump. And so once the bell jar repressurizes to atmospheric pressure, I can open it. Before that, the vacuum is way too strong for a human being. And then I can take the little bell jar piece off. And I'm going to have to pull out the samples again. I'm just going to do them in reverse order of the way that they went in. Hard for me to do with one hand, but give it a shot. So just for clarity, hopefully you can see that there's like a coppery gold color on those samples. So that one was number 7. It's not going all the way back down. There we go. And then this one was 6. It's a little bit easier to do with my fingers than it is with that tweezer right now, because I only have one hand to do it. This is number 4. This is 3. This is 2. That was our daffodil, right? So all the way back through all of the flowers that we sampled. And I'm back at the computer station here, so I can kind of act somewhat normal now. And now the SEM currently has samples in there that are under a vacuum, so I need to actually turn off the high voltage on them and vent. And that hissing noise is just nitrogen gas being pumped into the actual chamber. Just like the bell jar over there, everything happens in a vacuum, and that means we have to repressurize to the room pressure before a reasonable human being could open that chamber. So oh, we've got a second raid, 2 in a row while I'm away from my computer. I want to just say thank you guys for the raids, and sorry I wasn't right here when they happened, but as I'm kind of roaming around the lab with my handheld droid cam here, I'm my current videographer and my streamer, and I'm also trying to prep the samples. So down here on the table, these are a set of flowers and flower parts. Over here are the actual flowers, and I disassembled them and I put them on this SEM stub, and for each one I know which one goes into which slot, and then now I'm going to put them into the scanning electron microscope. So I need to do a little bit of preparation first. I've got to figure out where the screwdriver goes that tightens everything up. So, sorry, everything's just a little chaotic. I don't know where that screwdriver went. Oh, yeah. So earlier today, the filament burned out yesterday, and I had to actually replace the filament. So while the SEM is down, I can kind of showcase that as well. So up in here is this is the Electron Gun. And so inside of there is the filament. It goes inside of a little piece in here called the bind held cap. And again, the electric charge comes in through here. Basically, the filament, like a light bulb, gets the charge, and then these filaments actually give off like a plasma cloud of electrons. And then that gets pulled down through the chamber of the SEM and onto the samples. So that's the process. And then this SEM opens up just basically like a little drawer, right? If you wanted to sort of look inside, I can kind of put you inside the SEM. Here you go. That's inside the actual chamber. That little grill-shaped thing back there on the left-hand side at the top is the secondary detector, and the one that's coming in at us like a wand at the very top on the left-hand side is the elemental analyzer, the EDAX, and then this block that's over here on the left-hand or the right-hand side is actually the webcam that's looking in, and there's just some electrodes and stuff in there, right? And then this is somebody else's samples that are in my SEM. So the people who blew the filament on Friday were looking at these things. And these are the samples that we prepped. And I need to actually tighten these down just a little bit and actually loosen this one and then tighten it. As a product of trying to keep them from flying away. There's a little set screws that we use to hold all of the SEM stubs. And my SEM carousel here can hold 7 at once, which is great, because then I don't have to open the chamber 7 times in a row when I'm trying to go from one sample to the next. So those are all the same samples that we already prepped. I'm just tightening down the set screws on them a little bit. And then this has to line up with this in order for us to know which number is which. And there's just a little set screw that holds that in as well. And then there you go. You got a tour of the inside of the SEM. This is the EDAX detector. And then back here, this is the secondary detector. The part that's catching the actual electrons for topographic analysis. And then this right here is the infrared camera that's looking into the chamber. When we see a chamber view, that's what you're actually seeing. So this is it looks like a computer with like an old-fashioned toaster or something and a computer mixed together, but that's actually the SEM. And then all of the gears and stuff are in this part down here, all of the cables and pipes and stuff. And then the computers are basically the thing that the SEM is attached to. And so I'm also streaming from that computer. But it's mostly just used for the scanning electron microscope. Okay, so that's I've been filming with this and can stop it for now. Right now it says paused for the SEM because I need to, now that I've got my samples in there, I actually need to pump out all of the air that we pumped into it. So give me a second. And that is the pump turning on. So it'll get a little bit noisy as the pump sort of pumps down the chamber. And then I'll just reposition some things, and we'll sort of be in the normal mode that we have here. Where normally all this stuff's already been done. Today we're just running a little far behind because I had to switch out the filament, and I wasn't expecting to do that, and my schedule is sort of crazy as a result. Okay, so I don't need gloves anymore because our samples are already inside the chamber. And it's going to take a couple of minutes for it to pump down as I mentioned, the samples they've got live material, and the live material was a little wet. So as a result, it likely will require a little bit longer than normal to pump down the chamber. It's harder to get the air pumped out when there's a little bit of moisture in there. So. Yeah, if you're curious what kind of SEM it is, it's a Tescan Vega 3, and it is a tungsten SEM. So, and we looked at the tungsten filament earlier. This is the burned out tungsten filament right here, the one that I pulled out of it. So it's a really pretty simple little piece. It's just two little metal posts and a piece of tungsten that goes between them. Basically, I don't know if you can see that very well, but it's basically just like a light bulb without the bulb around it, right? So that's what we're using. Let's see. Sorry, like everything's sort of chaotic, but I really appreciate people rating. Just I'm a little behind things. And I can kind of scroll back and try to read through it, but I don't know that I'll catch up with all of it. So while it's pumping down, it's working on it, I promise. I'm going to try to catch up a little bit with chat. Let's see. I can see what's going on. Little Chook is here. Hi, Little Chook. And hopefully somebody, Pacific, did you give a shout out to Ursa? Oh, you did. Okay. So I'm slowly catching up with stuff. Little Chook and Ursa are both artists that now hang out around us regularly in the channel. You should check out their work. I was able to catch a little bit of Ursa's stream. I think it was last night. And then Little Chook, I just try to catch every stream she's doing. And then Last Miles, somebody give a shout out to Last Miles at some point. Thank you for the raid. That's a giant crowd of people that you brought in, and sorry I wasn't like right here actively paying attention to what was going on because I didn't realize I was being raided. I also turn all my sound alerts off because they make a bunch of noise and it scares me when it happens, so because I'm not expecting it. But I appreciate everybody coming in, and a second raid. Thank you for Feck for that raid. And hopefully everybody is at least a little bit interested in the scanning electron microscope and the process of setting up samples for the scanning electron microscope, because that's what we got this morning. So these are not diatom samples, though. They are pollen samples. I thought it's springtime, and pollen is starting to come out, and people with allergies probably already know that. Yeah, no diatoms today, just pollen, and the flowers, pieces of flowers that are associated with them. So, let's see. Yeah, where are we with we're not quite to green yet, and I might need to actually pump it down more than once, but it's kind of close, so we'll see. If it's pumping and it can't handle it, like there's too much moisture in the chamber, I sometimes need to vent it really quickly, and it will vent out all of the moist air that it's already in there, and then we have to pump it down again. That happens sometimes when we put organic stuff in there. So let's see. How is the SEM I'm using versus the Mucci SEM? I don't actually know SEMs that well. I know my SEM really well, and I know a few other ones. So I don't know what the Mucci SEM is. I would argue that mine's pretty good, though, for a tungsten. Okay. Microscopes are interesting, and pollen is interesting. Well, hopefully they are. Yeah, we're still waiting for the chamber, so we'll see. Let's see. It's close. We're at 7.6 times 10 to the minus 2 pascals, which is a very small number. And I think it usually, it crosses over right around 7.5. So it looks like I didn't have to do any sort of double pumping, which is nice. And I can turn on the high voltage. So this is a brand new filament, and this sample might not be the best one to start with, because all I can see right now is just a bit of the tape. So we'll start with number 1, which was our dandelion. And it's pieces of dandelion, and this web-like structure that we're seeing that's radiating out is the sail for a seed, for a dandelion seed. And this thing that you see right here, this piece right here, is actually a dandelion seed. So what we're looking at, if it helps, a dandelion looks like this. Let's see if I can, yeah, you can see that. This is one of these pieces sailed right off. The thing that catches the wind is this part that we see here, that's these sort of strands. And the actual seed itself is this piece right here that we're seeing. So a sample from that actual dandelion. And then if we scroll up just a little bit, these are the stamen, the pieces of the pollen that, would be, pieces of pollen would be on here, at least in theory, if it's generating pollen. And then they capture pollen as well. So these are, they seem like massive, nasty pieces, but they are, the little tiny things on the flower. So this is the dandelion flower. And we're just looking at these little tiny pieces that are in the center here, the stamen. So, and I'm not actually seeing pollen itself, which is okay. It could be that it's, obscured a bit. These are pieces of the petals as well. So that's a dandelion petal right there. And we're not anywhere near the closest magnification that our scanning electron microscope could handle. So some of these little things that are down here on the tape might actually be pieces of pollen. Yeah, it looks like maybe they are. So we can zoom in and look at those. And we are still super far away from our samples. So let me get us a little closer. And that will actually improve our ability to resolve images. It'll give us a little bit of a wider focal range as well. And hopefully that will improve our image quality. So there you go. That is most likely dandelion pollen. I'm not a pollen expert, which is part of the reason why I kept the plants together with the pollen. But it was located just off of a piece of the dandelion, so I'm guessing it's a pollen grain. And this looks like another view of that same one. It's like flipped over, but I'm guessing that's also dandelion pollen. So that image is just a little dark, and I'm going to try to fix that for us. There we go. So it just sort of balances out the image. Yeah, sorry, I'm working on it, Pacific. Right. There's no color inside the SEM because it's just using electrons to see. And so you just have to imagine that these are yellow. As a dandelion, they're yellow. And these are pieces of the, you can see that's a leaf right there, the dandelion leaf. And then you can see little bits of pollen are actually scattered all over the stage here. And it looks like maybe there's some additional pieces of pollen right here. These look like grass pollen to me. Again, I'm not an expert, but I don't think those are the dandelion pieces. And it's totally capable of, the pollen is totally capable of being transferred from anything to anything. That's what pollen does. And so we could have just a jumble of other, I was holding the flowers in my same hand, so we could have a jumble of different things here. At least in theory, the one that's most abundant should be the dandelion one, since how we have the dandelion bits and pieces right on the stub, right? So these ones are probably dandelion ones. Anything else we get just transfers basically as we were holding it, or I was transferring them, moving things around. Some of them might have a lot of pollen that could come off of them. Okay, so let's zoom in and look at the sexy bits a bit, and I don't mean that in a I mean that in a specific way. This is the sexy part of the dandelion, and anthers that are generating the pollen and then collecting the pollen, in some cases on the same plant. So that's a pretty cool little image. You can see bits and pieces of the sail, and then this piece of the actual anther on the flower. And I'm gonna slow down the thing so it's doing a nice clean image. And it looks pretty good for focus to me. And also the brightness is maybe a little bright in areas, but otherwise I think it looks good. So I can just go ahead and collect the picture. Here we go. So we went from holding this flower in my hand to subsampling it onto a stub, process the stub into the SEM, and we saw the entire process of collection all the way to collecting the image associated with the dandelion, right? So pretty neat to be able to do that, to be able to collect it and go through the whole process, and all the way to the end. So normally, if I were trying to do a task like this, I would try to have some lab assistance, so somebody could handle the camera and somebody could handle the collecting pollen bits and maybe even transferring them onto a slide. Instead, I'm doing everything by myself, so just be patient with me. One advantage is I have complete control over everything that goes, that happens, good or bad, right now. Like I said, we at least know this is dandelion, and I'd have no question that it's actually dandelion. So the pollen is a little bit of a mystery because it could be grass pollen, it could be other flowers. But I'm hoping as we move around the stub, some of the other types of pollen will be a lot more prevalent and obvious to us. Yeah, the background, that sort of little cratered looking stuff that's in the very background behind it, is just the carbon tape. The carbon tape itself is, it's kind of weird looking, but because it also goes through the vacuum in both the sputter coater and the SEM itself, it gets dehydrated, and so those little craters are just areas where it's desiccated a little bit, and it's probably a good thing that we coat the samples with gold, because that will actually act to kind of hold it together a little bit. It's like it's a very fine layer of gold, but it's probably enough to keep the material from jumping around and moving on the stub itself. So yeah, complete control. Anther, the part of the stamen where the pollen is produced. Yeah. Sorry, I probably should do better at my explaining parts to people. Does anybody know a streamer that's in botany? No. But I have plenty of friends who study pollen, that are pollen experts, and they're also plant experts. And I don't know if any of them will catch the stream and come in, or if they're just watching and haven't made an account on Twitch. But if they are, they're welcome to correct us on anything. I'm totally fine with that. Sometimes my friend Chris would sometimes come in early while we were streaming pollen, so If Chris is out there, feel free to hop in and give us some pointers on what we're looking at. I'm going to put this in Butterfly and Blue Jay under Pollen, so I can figure out where I put it later. And 410. Okay. And this is Dandelion Anther. And let's take a look at the seed. So we were looking at it before. It was a little dark still. And this is, as I mentioned, the petal. So we could actually zoom in and take a look at the petal itself. It's dehydrating as well because it was filled with water and we put it in a vacuum. But you can see the petals sometimes will be coated with pollen. And as I mentioned, I think that's grass pollen. It's stuck on the outside of the leaf of the dandelion. The dandelions have anthers in the middle part. If you ever look really closely at a dandelion, the middle part of the flower, the central part, is all filled with anthers, and the outside edge has the petals. So I took a little bit of one of the petals, that's what we're looking at now, as well as a bunch of the anthers when I was collecting it. And so you can see pollen will sometimes get trapped from plants on those pieces of the petal. Here's the actual seed right here, this thing, the end of the seed. And you probably didn't think they were all covered with like crazy hooks. I don't know how carefully you've ever looked at a dandelion seed before. They're brown, and I've got a bunch of them, that's this brown part right here. A bunch of them that are now floating around me here as a result of having sampled it live on Twitch. But there, so the ends of them are really jaggedy, and then these little strands that you're seeing, as I mentioned, are kind of the sails. So they're all kind of covered with like a scaled hook-like scaled structures. This is the bottom end of the seed, so when it's floating, this is the part that we're on now, is I think the part that would touch the ground first, right? So and I didn't do any kind of like correction for the wobble or the stigmation or any of that, and it's partly because as zoomed out as far as we are, you probably wouldn't notice it if it was a little out of focus with respect to the like stigmation. But you can see the details in here pretty well, so I feel like it's not too far off. I'm, a bit of a focus wonk, so I spend a lot of time trying to get those things perfect. Okay, so a flood of information. Learning the inside of the device to begin with was great. Oh, well, I haven't been able to sort of stuff my phone up inside the SEM very frequently, but sometimes I can get my hands in there. It looks like fly appendages. Yeah. They're very hairy or spiny. They don't look like what you would think of to be a seed or a flower. But those little hooks and spines and things probably help them, one, catch the wind. It's a little bit more friction, and so it's likely to help the seed sail a little bit better, which we all know dandelions are good at that. When you're a kid, you just like blow on them and the seeds go flying. And then probably also they catch things, and like when they're coming down, they probably catch on to things a little bit more easily as they descend. So yeah. Wish flowers. Yeah, you could make a wish, right? That's what you do with dandelions when you're a kid. And then you can do this really, when we were little, you would take these things and then you'd be like, smell it. And then when somebody would get close, you'd like rub their face on it and the pollen would get all over their face, right? What, butterface or something? I don't know what you call that. To trick your friends into getting pollen all over their face. Yeah. Buttercup, yeah. You're only supposed to blow. I mean, not. I'm just saying it starts as a kid. I'm not saying you can't do it as an adult. Kids blow on dandelions. Adults can also do it. I don't have a problem with people blowing on dandelion seeds. Some people think of dandelions as being pests. They don't like them in their yard or whatever. But I actually think they're pretty. And they draw a lot of bees. And for me, as a person who does a bunch of photography, the little things, dandelion's actually really pretty close up and bright yellow. And also, the pollen is bee food, and the bees are reliant on dandelions quite a bit. So this is a dandelion seed. I'm just going to put end, seed end, and let's see, we zoom out a little bit and you can see this stuff that's draped all over everything. As I mentioned, that's basically the sail that attaches to the dandelion, and you can see this sort of a knot of little hair-like structures up there, and yeah, here's the top end of the dandelion seed. You can see where it's broken a little bit, where the part that hangs onto the sail right there. And this part in here is really kind of interesting, the shape. So I'm going to, let's see, how far out can I zoom? Right now, that's about as far out as I can get. So I'm going to just back out a little bit. Because I think now I can get the whole seed in the field of view, and then I can just rotate it a bit as well. Maybe just a little more. So that we have the whole dandelion seed as good as we can get it sort of in our field of view. Because I think this is a really nice, neat view. And I can actually zoom in just a little bit. Yeah, I like that. It's neat. Okay. Here we go. And I'll collect another image. And I can come see what chat has to say. Little Chick says she loves dandelions. Yeah. See if your chin shines golden, and then you hold the buttercup under the chin in the sunlight. Yes, exactly. And then you smush it into their face, right? Yeah, if it does, you like butter. Who doesn't like butter? I mean, I guess you could not like a lot of butter. But I feel like butter kind of is useful. My dad told me the bees need dandelions. Yeah. I agree. I think the bees need dandelions. So we try to get rid of them in our yard. I don't. I mean, people try to get rid of them in their yard. But my yard right now is just, my backyard is just violets. And my front yard is just spring beauties. Like, it's just basically like a little bit of grass and then a bunch of flowers. And I got some violets that are also in the front yard. And then, what are those little, is Anna still here? What are those little tiny flowers that we took last time that you were interested in? Some of those are in my yard as well, this right now. So it does look a little bit like a pine cone. I mean, the shape is kind of pine cone-like, with overlapping scales and stuff. So, food treat for iguana and tortoise. Oh, I wish I had a tortoise. Don't tell my daughter that I said that, but if we had a pet tortoise, I would probably take care of that one. Sunflowers help bees too, yeah. um, like a pickle? Yeah. I don't know that it would taste very good if you pickled it, though. Um, People do eat dandelions, yeah. I've had dandelion, I think, in a salad before or something. I don't know if it's the same dandelion as it's what's in your yard, though. And then, yeah, it's in tea. Dandelion wine sounds interesting. Dandelion mead? Oh. Is that just the honey that's made from dandelion pollen? Like the bees collected only dandelion stuff? Because the pollen, the flowers that are used to um, collect the pollen that the bees collect kind of determines the flavor of the honey somewhat. So, um, I will need to choose a new audiobook after the stream. The process of choosing seems stressful to me. You're running out of things. Oh, I've read the fifth season. I don't think I've read any of the other ones, and I think it was okay. Maybe you should ask Pacific Plankton. Yeah, she's also read the fifth season. Um, is the drone sound fluorescent lightings or the SEM running? The droning sound you hear in the background is the pump. I didn't show the pump in the stream. It's not very exciting. It's just a mechanical pump, but it's over here. Sorry, over here on the floor, and it's always running in order to maintain the vacuum in the SEM. So whenever the stream is running, the pump is running. Sometimes it's a little less noisy. In the wintertime, I put my coat over top of it. Like I built a little thing so that because it can't put it on it, it'll overheat. But I could put it so that it was covering over it like a little bit of a sound cushion. And now it's summer and I can't put my coat on it anymore. So it's maybe a little bit louder than it usually is as a result. But there's nothing I can do about the sound. If I put a gate on my microphone, it will cut the noise of the vacuum drone sound out. But then every time I talk, you'll hear it because when the microphone opens, it will still make, so it'll be like now when I talk, there's a buzzing noise. So then you'll think I'm some sort of demon, I suspect, with the buzzing noises when I talk. All right, so is it really 2:30? Oh, time flies when I'm scrambling to get things done. So let's move around a little bit. I don't want to. I mean, we didn't really take any pictures of the pollen for this particular organism, but we did get a bunch of the plant. And if there's time at the end, if I feel like there's still a little bit of time, we can come back and image some of this pollen as well. There's little sprinkles of it all over the stage. So, but I can't tell what belongs to the actual dandelion and what doesn't. I'm sure somebody could Google dandelion pollen, and then we could tell which one it is, but I feel like it's going to be a matching game that I would have to do separate from this. So, and we could also come back and take a look at some of this grass pollen. But for now, there's actually a lot of stuff on here that we haven't seen, and I kind of want to get around to it. So I'm moving to the second one, and I don't know if everybody remembers what was on the second slot, or if anybody remembers what it was. I think maybe it was lilac. I think maybe that's the piece of the lilac. I still can smell that lilac. It's right next to me, and it's just a little tiny piece of it, but I can still smell the lilac a lot. So I think that's what this is. Chat can correct me if you were writing down the numbers, which one was which. There we go. So we're still way zoomed out. I probably should make that clear. We are not maximizing the SEM on any level. When we're looking at plants, we can see such amazing textures with them. The structure right here is just absolutely incredible. but we're not really like pushing the SEM to any sort of limit while we're doing it, you know, in here. That magnification rate there, which is kind of as close as we have gotten to the lilac, is 3,000 times magnification. So that's kiddie stuff. It's better than a light microscope, but it's sort of kiddie stuff for the SEM. We're usually up in the like 70,000 sort of range. But it ramps up quickly as you get closer and closer to things. So these are some pretty cool structures. These are just the cells, basically the plant cells for the flower. And I'm not sure what the structure is, whether that's actual pollen or something else, but it's all over the outside of this piece. And then I sort of ripped open the plant of it intentionally when I put it on here. So I think this is part of the leaf going up this direction. You see these sort of long, straight cells. I think that's part of the leaf, and I think this is the anther here for these. So the maximum amount of pollen should be like out here on the ends of these things a little bit. And it looks pretty similar to what we were seeing up there with respect to these little squiggly bits. Just a little over brightened. But we're looking right down into the anther on that one. And then there's a bit of pollen, I think, down here as well that's fallen onto the stub and onto the flower petals. And I think this is just another piece of leaf right here. So it's amazing how, without the color context, how quickly you lose track of what things are. And also, you know, like you start looking at something from this magnification and it no longer has any bearing on the object like the normal object. So you don't have any color to use as a clue for what it is, and now also it looks completely alien, right? Like this crazy structure is just completely alien. I mean, you can tell there's cells, and you could probably tell it's a plant if you're familiar with looking at plants in the SEM. But like outside of that, you're just looking at these structures going like, what is this, right? It's a complete mystery. So a fun mystery for us today. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a picture of this guy right here, because I like these really like interesting interwoven textures that we're seeing, and especially with these like, I don't know, I think these are stomata, little like eyeball shaped openings that are all over the place, like they're looking at us. It's super creepy and cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that picture. Yours used to go clunk, clunk, clunk. Oh. That's all right. I don't drink a lot, like almost never. And when I do, actually mead is one of my favorite things because it's super sweet and it's like a different taste than honey, but also it doesn't seem as strong alcohol wise. So Starchface wants to know, is it summer there? Which hemisphere I'm in? I'm in northern hemisphere. We're in Indiana, in the U.S., and it is spring. You know, we're like 2 weeks into spring. So, 3 weeks. But the flowers are blooming. And so part of the reason why I wanted to look at pollen today is because it's spring, which is a time when flowers are basically, you know, all over the place, and pollen starts to you know, cause people allergies and everything else. So earlier on the stream I mentioned that, let's see, I think it was this one, yeah. So I was out, you can see we have grass, that's the sidewalk outside the building, and then these are the flowers that we are looking at. So we looked at the dandelion, and now we're looking at the lilac, which is actually, you can't see very easily in this image because it was just a little piece of it. It looks like something knitted. Yeah, exactly, doesn't it? It looks very like, I don't know, like the top of a pie to me. Yarn, yeah, a little bit like yarn. Um, yeah, a seven-eyed space monster, exactly. Dandelion pollen is spherical with a series of fissures and spiky structures. Yeah, but I think that was the first thing we looked at, right? Whose name is this? Are the samples coated with gold? Yes, these have been coated. We did that earlier in this actual stream. So we collected the samples live and then prepped the samples live and actually did the sputter coating live, and now we're looking at the actual organisms live. So got a lot of live in there. Yeah. He used to live in Jeffersonville and New Albany, way down on the Ohio River. Yeah, I'm not very familiar with the southern part of Indiana, although I do go down there and do field work occasionally for classes. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really pretty looking and very interesting. You know, maybe you weren't, you don't know what to expect for a lot of things when we look at it in the SEM. They just look so different than they do in reality. So, I'm just going to call it Lilac Flower Part 1, because I don't know what part that actually, what's the name of that piece right there. And then, yeah, we can follow that piece down to the actual anther, and that's this part down here. This is what makes the pollen on the plant, generates the pollen, and it looks like there's actually a little bit of grass pollen right there. Remember we were looking at grass pollen? I think that's actually some grass pollen that's trapped on the anther. And that's just as I mentioned, you know, when you start looking at the pollen, it's all over everything. So here's some more pollen of something. I don't know if that's actually the lilac's pollen or not. Down here on this this end of it, but I'm guessing probably not. I'm guessing this stuff down here is the lilac's pollen. Let's take a look at it. So now we're actually kind of using the SEM at the level that we would need an SEM to look at these things. Here we go. And I think that's a bit of pollen. I don't know if that's the lilac's pollen or not. So I'm sorry, I'm not a pollen expert. It's on the stub with the pollen from, with the lilac. I don't know if that makes it lilac pollen, but improves the possibility that that's what it could be, I guess. If we have a pollen expert in the channel, feel free to shout out, that's not lilac, or that is lilac. That's definitely a pollen grain, though. So it's got 3 little openings. We covered pollen in the microfossils class this week, but I missed the first part of it because I was out taking pictures. So I don't remember the terminology very well for the pollen shapes. But the furrow or the line that connects them together and the openings and the fact that there's 3 of them sort of lumps it in with some group of pollen. So go ahead and take that picture. And we'll just call it suspected lilac pollen. Yeah, okay. That looks like lilac. There we go. So here's the actual lilac flower that we collected. I mean, it smells so good. And I don't know, they must make a ton of pollen because it just, everywhere you go, you can smell this thing. And like, it's just sitting here next to me and I can't smell anything else. So, pretty cool. Yeah, the symmetry is pretty neat. It's got the trifold symmetry. So, stigma, yeah, that's the piston, stigma, anther. Those are the parts of the plant. Thank you for the Google help. Pacific and also Anna. Quigless says, years ago when I used an atomic force microscope and an STM, we used mercury. What's the difference between using gold and mercury? I don't know. I've never electroplated anything with mercury. I also don't have an atomic force microscope, and I don't know how anything gets prepared for one of those. The gold is just actually giving it some metallic coating so that it doesn't get charged up, so that the sample, when we put the beam on it, doesn't, because it's not very conductive to electricity normally, and the electrons will build up on corners and edges, and then it won't give us a very good picture. So you could just stuff pollen in the SEM and image it immediately, but it probably everywhere there would be edges, there would be like bright spots. And so the reason that we use gold is just gold's highly conductive. I have no idea about mercury. I mean, it's a metal, so it's probably more conductive than the plant by itself. But, you know, why somebody would use that versus gold, I don't know. It's relatively cheap and, you know, lasts a long time for us to use the gold sputter coater. Maybe it's a cost thing. Maybe it's an efficiency thing. Maybe you need some sort of special coating for the atomic force microscope. I don't know. So, hey, Swy, how's it going? Yeah, mercury is also toxic, so gold isn't. Mercury's cheaper, more toxic, and has a side benefit. It's highly conductive, yeah. Yeah, so it's probably just a little bit more conductive, and also, but it's toxic, right? So, and I guess in general, because I work with diatoms and our processing is very low chemical, you know, we just use hydrogen peroxide for the most part when we process things, or maybe I use nitric acid sometimes, but it's really like not very aggressive chemical processing to sort of get it to the point where we can analyze it. And so like the less dangerous things I can have around students, the better. Lilac pollen, we've identified it and we got a good image of it, so I'm excited about that. Probably if we turned it around, if we looked at it from a different angle, we might be able to find different kinds of openings on them. But there you go. We got the lilac and we got the lilac pollen. Let's go down here and see if any of these are also other views of the same thing, or if there's something else. So I think these might be, this one has 3 little openings. Maybe it's the opposite side of what we were looking at. I don't know. That could be something else. We got lucky maybe and caught the pine or the lilac pollen on the first try. Here's another. This one has 3. That's a grass pollen from the back side. It landed just face down, and I think there's another one over here. Yep, that's a grass pollen as well, I think. And I think there's even another one right here. I think that's also a grass pollen. So we got lucky if we got the lilac on the first try. There's a lot of other pollen. All this stuff that's down here is pollen. I'm sure some of those are lilac. I'm sure if we zoom in on them and, yeah, get a good look at some of them, those are probably lilac. Yeah. So they're a little bit more rounded. So, okay, let's zoom out a little bit and we'll, man, that looks really crazy, doesn't it? Reticulated, like crazy reticulated. I think part of that's just the put it in the vacuum and the plants, you know, dehydrate and compress a little bit. Pollen's a lot more durable. It's made out of something called sporopollenin, and it's highly resistant to basically everything. And so it doesn't get smushed as badly as the plants themselves do. These things, basically, when you put them in a vacuum, they don't handle it very well, as most organic things don't enjoy being in a vacuum. So, okay, we got lilac and we got the lilac pollen. We got dandelions, but we didn't get a dandelion pollen. At least we might have seen one, but it we might not have. I don't know. I don't remember what was in number 3, but we're going to 3 now. Oh, there's just a ton of pollen on this thing. And I think this might be Daffodil? I think this might be the Daffodil, because I put on these big pieces of the Daffodil. And oh my goodness, look at the pollen on those. They're just like crazy with it. Right? All that's pollen. Sorry, it's all charged up a little bit right here in the middle. But there's enough on the stub itself that we don't need to worry about the anther. We can come off of the anther a little bit and look somewhere else. There is just pollen all over the surface. So I feel like we're going to get this one. And like I said, I think this was Daffodil. I don't know if anybody was keeping track of the numbers, so we can go back and double check. But I think I was putting them on in order of how familiar I was with them. So, and that chunk right there is a pretty big chunk of plant. And here's another big chunk of plant. I'm pretty sure these were the daffodil pieces. So if we zoom in, you get a real good look at all the daffodil pollen. And I don't know if it'll do it without charging or drifting, but it looks like it's doing okay right now. If I zoom in just a little bit more, I might be able to get, yeah. Okay, good. Let's see how tight I can get that focus. That looks like it's about as good as I'm going to get. You can see there's some non-daffodil pollen stuffed in here. This thing, that doesn't belong. It's been trapped in the plant. And my guess is that, bees go from flower to flower, and the pollen gets stuck on the bees. And so this probably got transferred in by a plant, by an animal of some type, an insect would be my guess. And if we just go a little bit closer, get some of that reticulate surface that's on there. And I think maybe I want to position it kind of like where we get some of the... let's get this other guy in it. I think maybe that's a aster. I don't remember what the pollens... We saw some pollen grains before. It's a little over brightened, so I'm just going to try to tweak that and see if it will behave. And that's probably because it's got a lot of moisture in here, and it didn't get coated as well in the SEM. And I think maybe I need it to be a little brighter than that, but maybe I can take it like this, and then I will do a little bit of editing, a little bit of Lightroom editing on this one later, because the exposure differences from one side of it to the other are not great. My other choice would be, I can just highlight an area and tell it to make its adjustments based on that. Yeah, that might work a little bit better. So this will be a little bright down here, but kind of... Oh, it's really bright over there. Yeah, I guess that's okay. Looks good enough. So when we switch to the very slow mode and it's drawing over it, I just want to make sure it's not going to put a bunch of lines in it, because sometimes when particles get charged like this, it get a bunch of lines. I guess if it is, we can always just crop it, because this part looks like it's going to work. So there you go. That's a daffodil and the daffodil pollen. That was an easy one. Let's see. I miss a little bit when I go off to SEM focus land. No fun sputtering Mercury. Having to have an evac hood. Yeah, no thanks. I don't know that they use Mercury amalgams for fillings anymore. I think maybe they stopped that practice. Back in the late 90s you did it and you never understood why they use one or the other. I guess it's just something slightly more conductive. Yeah. Sort of looks like a sea sponge. Do you right click to make the focus square? I get a double click, but it's just a, oh, you can see it's charged a little bit in here. Just got a little bit of a line through it. Just double click and the box will show up and go away. So, but it's simple. It's pretty nice. How big is my SEM? Well, we looked at it earlier. It's, you know, it's right over here. The chamber, I think, is what you're asking me, like how big can I put something in there? I don't remember what the actual dimensions are for it. Each one of the stubs that's in there is about 12 millimeters across, and so the entire carousel where all the samples are sitting in the image below me is probably about 35 millimeters across, and I think that the chamber was 50 by 50. We could put something 50 millimeters by 50 millimeters in there, something like that. Yeah. You can always also just Google TestScan Vega 3. I think it's there's 4 different chamber sizes that you can get on this machine, and I think ours was the 3rd largest one. I think there was an even bigger one that you could get, but it was a lot more money, so yeah. It's outlawed in France. No, the inside of the chamber it's maybe the size of a, like the whole chamber itself is maybe the size of a pot you would boil noodles in. I don't know what to give you as a something comparable. Let's see. So these were Daffodil, Pollen. This is more actually the Daffodil. This is more like the stamen or whatever. And I'm gonna get away from this super charged up monstrosity and just get out here into this like sea of pollen grains. It looks like Rice Krispies or something. And it's at a lower elevation, so it requires me to modify the height a bit. But and then we can kind of zoom in and look really closely at some of this stuff. And it's dark because we changed elevations, and we're also down at a lower height, so I just need to make some tweaks. Yeah, so here we go. And I just wanted to zoom into focus. I don't want that picture. I actually want a picture that's more like showcasing how much of it there was. Like this. So, and we get all the detail out at this elevation anyway, so I think it'll be okay. It's just a little over brightened, so I'm going to try to get it to neutralize those really bright grains a little bit. It's always just when things are wet and living, it's hard to get the image to be as consistent and in tone as like diatom skeletons are all made of silica, so I don't have like a compositional problem and I don't have a moisture problem. So, but I think this actually will work well. It looks like I'm getting pretty good, so I'm just going to go with it, and hopefully that's going to turn out all right. So yeah, this is the Daffodil Pollen, and this was the Daffodil here, and the little stamen and anthers are the middle part in here, and I just plucked some of those big giant bulbous things out, and that's what we were looking at before. So I actually like these daffodils the best that have the have like a bright orange boundary around them. I like those ones. Yeah, it looks like it did get a little bit. Just probably going to have to crop out those grains. Nope, it's doing it all over the place. So I'm just actually going to break that. And let's see if we can find an area that's not quite got so many bright grains on it. This will work. Yeah, so if you used an SEM in the past, and you know, a lot of the SEMs that I was trained on, we couldn't use a mouse to control everything, and probably just lost so much of the day doing stupid stuff that this thing just does automatically. So I think I can actually even auto balance that to be a little bit brighter. Yeah, so I really like this instrument. I'm not trying to sell anything. Tuscan doesn't sponsor me or anything. I should probably talk to them about it because nobody else does this sort of thing, but who knows if they would actually even throw money at me or what they would do, but probably nothing. The maintenance guy didn't seem to know what I was talking about when I said, oh yeah, I stream from the SEM. He just kind of looked at me funny. So that's going to be nice and sharp. Okay. Keeping that one. Probably. Yeah, time flies, right? You can feel your allergies. Let's see. It looks like rice. It looks like Rice Krispies, don't they? It looks like you could just put a little sugar and some milk on them. And, or if you get like sugar smacks, I guess you don't need to use any sugar then. You can just put the milk on them. I think I'd probably eat like one mouthful of those and I would be like, oh, too sweet. Everything at a minute level seems to have an orderly structure with randomness inside and the next level down, followed by order. Like those small pores, yeah. So you see it and then you zoom in on it and then it's like, oh, these pores actually have sort of a weird structure to them. And then you zoom in on the pores and there's, yeah, the sort of fractal nature of organisms. Even these are having just a little bit of a charge. So this daffodil must have been very wet. I mean, it rained right before I went out and collected stuff, so I didn't have any choice on that front. Hopefully, I should look to see if it's going to rain on Wednesday, because I wanted to catch some more, do some more pollen stuff on Wednesday, and then maybe give it a break for a bit. Sunny on Wednesday, so maybe I'll collect some pollen or some plants tomorrow, or wait till Tuesday and do a little bit of plant collecting and then let them dry out a bit before I give them a minute before I turn them into stubs. But I feel like we did a good job catching the daffodil pollen and the lilac pollen, and we still have 3 more stubs, and I don't know that I'll actually get through all 3 of them. I normally stop at 3, but I didn't really start until about 1:30 today, so I'm gonna go at least until 3:30. And then it's been, it does seem like it's just sort of flown by faster than usual, even probably because we're looking at something that I don't know anything about, so it's kind of fascinating. And but they're things that we're so used to seeing as normal objects. I mean, everybody sees daffodils all the time, and dandelions and whatnot. So it's just nice to be able to see them in a different way, right? Which is part of the reason why we stream. Daffodil pollen. Okay. These are pretty cool. There's a lot here. I could always come back to them if we wanted to, but for now, let's move to the next one. So these were, I believe those are the crabapple. I believe that's like the little stamen from the crab apples, and there should be a giant leaf. Yeah. So I think that is the leaf from crabapple. And you can see it also has a bunch of stuff on it, and it's a little out of focus. The single leaf petal of the flower, and like how much pollen is actually just sitting on the surface of it, right? All that's pollen up there, and in here, like coated over the whole surface, right? And then these are the actual like anthers. Again, I just plucked the whole thing off so we could get a good look at them. And these ones also look like little Rice Krispies or Sugar Smacks or something, right? That's super bright. There we go. Let's see if I just go with that, will it? Trying to figure out if it's going to give me a hard time. It doesn't seem like it's charging. Another aspect with SEM stuff is as you get taller things or things that are standing up off of the surface, they're not as connected to the stub, and so they tend to actually get a lot more charging that happens on them as well. So like these things that are up off of the surface could potentially create problems, but this one doesn't seem like it's doing that. So I'm gonna hope for the best. You can see that sort of detail on the pollen grains themselves. It is drifting just a little bit though. You can see the image is drifting just a little bit. Okay. I'm gonna try to get this, and then we'll zoom in and maybe just do one on the grains themselves. Should make it look like a lollipop or something. There we go. And as long as that doesn't charge up and start creating lines and stuff across the screen, it should be good. All right, so I should point out, yesterday in the evening, I did an interview with Freckled Science, Amanda, and so some of you were there. But it was a really fun interview. My mom watched it and she laughed through the whole thing, and so I mean, Amanda's very funny, and I thought it was a really nice conversation. So if you want to check that out, I'm sure that the VOD is up somewhere on Twitch. But we talked a lot about just general science things. And I thought it was a nice, lively conversation. Actually, would have preferred to keep the conversation going a little bit longer, but I had other obligations I had to switch to. And then you should check it out. I think it was fun. So, and also, if you don't follow Freckled Science, you should. It's very entertaining. And on Fridays, she's going to do interviews with scientists like regularly now. So it's part of her. She's a partnered Twitch streamer, so it's part of her regular programming. So it's charged a little bit, you know, like right in here and right here. There's a little bit of a line that forms that's not actually natural. That's a consequence of the differences in the elevations of the particles next to each other that also creates charging sometimes. So I feel like this is good enough. I might be able to actually fix that in Photoshop. I'm not sure. Sometimes those lines have a little hard, the boundaries are a little bit too hard for me to like to neutralize, but I probably could go in and touch it up a little. Let's see. Oh, how's it going, bread shrimp? Uh-oh. Pacific Plankton's throwing her money around. Um, I could be the face of their marketing campaign. I don't know if they want my face. They might want my SEM images, but could we look at trichomes? Yeah, we can. Um, Ursa, I'm sad I have to get going, but all this was a lot of fun. Yeah. Well, thank you for hanging out. Let's see. That actually looks like a crab apple. Like the structure itself looks like an apple. Because I think that is the crabapple pollen. Um, let's see. How are you doing, Dangling? Quigless, what brought you to Twitch and to decide to stream? This is fantastic, and I love how the genre of Twitch are expanding. I was brought to Twitch by a tiny world, interviewing a friend of mine, and I liked the format, and so she uses a microscope to stream, and she was streaming diatoms and interviewing a scientist at the same time, and I just thought it was kind of an interesting idea to put a microscope on and show other people things, because I do that in my classes and in my lab, and so I became interested in that as an idea, and I mentioned that I had an SEM, and then she got excited about the idea of me streaming from an SEM, and I thought, oh, other people might like that, they might actually like to be able to see everyday objects or diatoms or whatever it is that we wanted to put on there on the SEM, and so I thought, well, I don't know, I'm kind of a quiet person, and I'm not like I talk a lot on the stream because I have to, but I could just sit in a room by myself for like 5 hours and not say a word normally. So it was kind of like a big hurdle for me to get over, putting myself on a stream and I don't know, a camera that's always looking at me and people always looking at what I'm doing. But I sort of got over that, and that's sort of that's how I got here. So I like doing it. I mean, I probably stream a bit too much now. Not from the SEM, but just I have so many things going on, inside and outside of Twitch, YouTube, whatever else. It'd be nice if I could back off of it a little, but yeah, I think that's going to happen. I think we've got some plans to sort of tone some of it down. My plan for the SEM is that I'm probably going to move my second stream of the week to Monday in the afternoon. So it'll be like Monday afternoon and Wednesday afternoon. I'm not sure exactly yet, but I think Saturdays are going to be something else, starting next Saturday. So I won't probably be streaming on Saturday afternoons anymore, at least not from the SEM. So we'll see. But I think I will still do twice a week. It's just that the other day will probably be on Monday, and I'll probably have Laura and maybe Sukanya with me regularly when we stream on Monday. So this was such a good image, and then that line showed up right there. Just one line. I think the rest of the image is totally fine. Just that one line. But I'm not going to retake it just because of that. If it were something where I was imaging a diatom for publication, I probably would. But so these are the little pieces of a crabapple flower that we're looking at right now, and this is the pollen. So we're zoomed in on one of those little pistils or whatever. I guess it's an anther still, for these plants. That's crabapple flower from a tree. So this is just crabapple pollen. And we're sort of photo documenting the different types of pollen and plants that we see. I'm not being super careful about imaging all of the pollen that we see, because there's a whole bunch of other stuff in here. But I'm trying to get one of each of the things that we put on the SEM. So that means I still need to do 2 more and also get to what's on 7. And I thought maybe I'll just jump to 7 real quick and maybe spoil the surprise, because I don't know what's on there, if anything. This sample, number 7, I just put some tape on, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, I strapped it to my bike helmet, and then I rode around the block, and I don't know if it was going to work, so I thought maybe I'll just see whether there's anything there real quick. It could be, that's just the tape that we're looking at right now. It could be that nothing landed on my bike helmet. It could be that I actually got some pollen or mold spores or who knows what. None of these look like actual pollen grains. It looks like junk. I thought it would be just sort of interesting. I had another idea, which I'll probably do for Wednesday, if we're going to focus on pollen some more, which I probably will, which is, these just look like pieces of debris from plant. The dashboard of my car is covered with some dust, so I thought I could also maybe smash some of that into the tape and see if there's any pollen on my dashboard of my car. So it looks like there's something on there, but that could just be Play-Doh, because I was holding it in place with Play-Doh. I'm not seeing a ton of pollen. I see some dust and then maybe some plant debris. But also it was raining a little bit just before I started. So I'll probably have to run the experiment again on like a high pollen day where there's not as much rain. Because it doesn't look like a whole lot got captured. Okay, I just wanted to see what was there. Let's jump over to number 5. And number 5 is another, I think this was the other tree plant. Yeah, so that's these things. I don't know, we had a name for these little white flowers. I don't know what they are. Maybe also a kind of apple or something. But I plucked off some of the anthers for those as well, and so you can see those, and also some of the petals. So that's a petal right there. This big piece that we see right here, that's a petal. Yeah, that's one of these long, big pieces of petal, which I ripped up a bit in order to get it to fit on the stub. Oh, that makes my eyes wiggle. That's crazy. That's what the petal looks like close up, which is really impressive. And I'm going to try to tighten that image down for the focus a little bit. And then maybe zoom out, because the texture is just like crazy. Like crazy, stunning, and weird. Which are a good combination in my mind. I'm going to fix the brightness a bit. Yeah, that's interesting looking. Okay. Think it'll look good. Take that as a picture, and then I can come back and see what chat's been saying. Where are we? I'm talking about Amanda the biologist? No, she's a chemist. Hey, Rhino Lion, hello. It's nice to see you. I usually see you from the other side as the moderator in Pacific Plankton stream. So you regularly raid her channel. It's nice to see you. Today we're looking at plants and pollen that I collected right before the stream started and then processed them and everything else. So you talk to your samples when you're alone. You ask them questions. Okay. We could do a double stream on Monday. Except for I think mine are going to be in the earlier part of the day. Oh, Anna, you're upset because I'm not streaming on the weekends and you can't usually watch them if they're not on the weekends, huh? I guess I could try to do something later in the day or on Sunday, but I feel like at least for a little while I probably won't be able to do it on the weekends. So, Geeky Girl Sarah, hello, I saw your Failure Science Friday yesterday. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I don't know. She asked me to do it. I guess I'm bad at failing. I'm sorry about that. When she asked me to do it, I was like, I don't have any really like bad failures. I don't know. I don't drop things. So my failures are more like that didn't work, but they're not usually catastrophic. It's hard to break diatoms. They're little and below the comminution size. Do you coat your samples with metal? Yes, gold. We talked about that, and I showed it earlier. Blog. You have several glasses. That's a good answer. I have glasses. I'm just not wearing them because I'm too close to the screen to actually have my glasses on. It makes my head hurt. It looks like a wind map. Yeah, it's so crazy looking, isn't it? You've seen electron microscope pictures before, but this is the first time you've seen them with an actual electron microscope. Yeah, we're here, live, looking at whatever. So it's pretty cool. Thank you for dropping in. And you also did a Failure Friday from the week before? Is that the right person? Am I thinking of the right person? I didn't get a chance to watch your stream, but I will go back and look at that interview. I just haven't had a chance to get to it. This is some sort of white tree flower. I don't remember if anybody told me what that one was, but this is the petal of it. And that's a crazy image. That just looks like insane to me. It's like insanity as an image. Okay, so this is the petal, and as I mentioned, I sort of ripped it up earlier in the stream and put it down on the stage, and then I think that's just dust. I don't think those are, I think this is pollen maybe. Yeah, here's some pollen grains trapped on the actual leaf. And then this is something different than these. But we can see very clearly what these ones look like because the anthers are on here as well. So that's what these are. And there's this one that's like, looks like a brain. Let's see if I can get that a little tighter. And then I'm going to zoom in. You can see it's charged up in here a little bit. Oh, it's really charging. See this thing dancing down here? That's what happens when there's too much moisture. So this might not be a good target for us to aim to. The other one that's a little bit darker might work better if we wanted to image them together. Let's see how this one does. I'm going to adjust the brightness because it's like off the top, a little too bright. These ones don't have that same, the little pores and things that we saw like on the surface, the pits on the surface. I don't see those. Oh, it does have stripes though. This is pretty close to the one that we just looked at, the crabapple pollen. So I don't know, maybe I thought it looked a little bit like an apple tree of some type, but the flowers weren't the same. So I can go out and actually image the leaves from it. If it was like a question that we couldn't resolve. Because it's right outside the building. I can maybe run out and take some pictures of the trees after the stream is over. Help us resolve what these things are. I just want to get away from that edge where it's like super bright, but I want the picture to have sort of like a little bit of all of these guys. Right there, right there. Okay. When there's so many objects, it's hard for me to figure out which one I should be focused on. Yeah, look at those crazy textures. Okay, let's see about this. Brightness, and then I think these are all pretty even, and I don't see a lot of bright spots except for maybe right down there at the bottom. So I think that will be okay, even though there's I think there's still a lot of moisture trapped in this part of the plant. Oh, that looks good. It's so sharp. Okay, here we go. Take that picture. Alright, let's see. Scroll back up. Yeah, you were the first Failure Friday guest. Okay, yeah. So I think I just saw that you had done it, and right before I went to do the interview, I posted a picture to my Discord, and I was like, oh, somebody's already done this like the previous week. So it'll be good to go back and check it out. So. Oh, the inside, yeah. Gaga blog, the blood sample we looked at, one of our students volunteered to put some of their blood under the SEM. It wasn't particularly interesting, to be honest. It just looks like a blob. With the platelets, you can barely see much. So we have done that before in a previous stream. So, yeah. Is this pollen? Yes. Commander Shafard, this is a pollen from this flower right here. So if you know what this plant is, and oops, if I can get it to focus on it. If you know what that plant is, I think it's some sort of an apple, or like an ornamental apple. So it looks kind of like it belongs in the prunum genus. Then earlier I took this and I put it on a stub, and we gold plated it, stuck it in the SEM. So I actually showed all of it on the stream, which isn't something that I normally do because it's kind of boring for me to do it all the time, I think. Plus it cuts into the streaming schedule quite a bit. I think we didn't even actually start looking at stuff in the SEM until 1:45 or something, so because of the preparation time. But yeah, these are pollen. This is the pollen from that plant. And earlier I imaged the leaf surface, the petal surface, sorry. They have a really cool, like, ridged fingerprint-like structure on the surface of these pollen grains. Very similar to the ones that we saw in the last sample as well. So it's also why I think they might be closely related. Okay. That is collected. This is white tree flower pollen. And I just have one more stub, which is the last one, which is this little ground flower that we captured, and Anna selected as the 6th slot in our choices of things to look at. And I just put the whole flower on here. So you can see here are the anthers, and the petals are all together, and they're coming out of their actual original flower source, but one of the petals is curled over the actual sample a little bit, so we can't see the very middle part of the flower, but the anther that's sticking out here will probably be good enough that we can get a close-up view of it. And you can see all the pollen still inside of the flower, here in the anther. And it's kind of glowing a little bit. I think it's probably just, it was wet, is my guess. So it's a little bit wetter than it's supposed to be in the SEM. I'm going to try to balance out the brightness a bit because it's dark. And then we'll just take this image of the anther, and then maybe I'll see if I can find some of the pollen isolated in an area that's not quite so wet. So also very sharp, and this looks really good in here. I like this. Even with the glowing, it looks okay. It looks like it's on fire. Looks like there's a little bit of a campfire going on inside the pollen. But the petals and leaves together have a really rich combination that I like. So we're going to go with that. And I'm going to take that picture, and hopefully it doesn't charge. Doesn't get charged up. Let's see what's going on. Let's see. I had a running joke that I was her favorite First Failure Friday guest. Yeah. How well did my helmet idea work? It did not work well, but if you're wondering what they're talking about, there, I put a little bit of Play-Doh in my helmet and then stuck an SEM stub in there. And then I rode around on my bike, and it didn't seem to collect all that much pollen. So either I didn't ride for long enough, or it just happens because today was a day that it rained a little bit right as I was riding. It was like sprinkling on us. And it rained a little bit earlier in the morning as well. So I think that actually probably knocked a bunch of the pollen out of the air. And I'm going to try it again, maybe on Wednesday. Now that I got my bike tires pumped up, I probably will just ride in more frequently. So I might do some experiments where I just stick a stub in my helmet and ride to school and ride in my way into work, and then get in and put the stub in the SEM. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm also going to see if I can check the weather keeps track of like the pollen index. So I'm going to see if I can try to time it with days where the pollen index is high, and then we can see what's out there. Those bright spots charge just a little bit too much, but like I said, I might be able to tweak that just a bit. So, node light, what are we looking at? We're looking at this thing, this little tiny flower. We're looking at it in the SEM. So we're trying to get some pictures of pollen and flower pieces, and I don't remember what the name of that one was. I thought somebody thought it was, I don't know what they said, ambrosia or something. You're going to have to go. Okay. It's getting kind of late for you, and you need to make lunch, I know. Thanks for holding down the fort for me, Pacific, especially while the raids were coming in and I was busy sort of running around like an idiot trying to get everything together. So it looks like a dessert cave? Did they put desserts in caves? Oh, a desert cave. Okay, now it makes more sense. I think a dessert cave sounds like an amazing idea, though. It's a good invention. If you could make one of those and just let me know where to show up, I'd be there. This is a white brown flower. And you know what? I might also bounce those flowers through iNaturalist and figure out what it thinks they are. This is the anther. That's kind of a cool picture, though. And then this one's kind of hanging out on its own, not quite closed like the other one is. This one is already opened. And that's the petal. So let's just take a look at the petals real quick. See if we can get a good look at these crazy geometrical patterns that they're making. Those are the individual cells for the petal that we're seeing. And there's like a dividing line that's going through the middle of them. Kind of want to get away from. Right there. Just zoom in a little bit and I'll get rid of it. Now the patterns are pretty authentic looking. I don't have like an artificial line cutting through them. Like right there. Yeah, that's a little too close. Perfect. And I'm going to slow it down so you can see all the detail. And man, that also looks really cool. I'm just making coffee table pictures, apparently, today. It's a good one. All right. I was a human aerogel, yeah, except for it didn't work very good. I caught the end of the stream. I'll watch the VOD. Okay, good. DDD, it's pretty interesting. We've got some pretty good pollen. So, microscopic Oreos? I feel like maybe I want some macroscopic Oreos. I'm not so sure about microscopic. A non-skid surface? I mean, maybe that's what it's meant to be. I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to color some of these for you guys. The images that you see like way down there in the little slideshow that go by are previous SEM images that we've collected, and and then I usually colorize them using Adobe Lightroom and Procreate on my iPad, and then post them to my Instagram page. So if you're interested in catching some of those, I'll probably post some there. That's the Instagram page for the SEM lab. And I'll probably colorize some of these, especially the cool pattern ones, and maybe I'll come up with some really nice looking images that I can share. They'll also be in my Discord, so if you wanted to download the real image as a colorized image, I also post them to my Discord regularly in the little, in one of the little stream areas there called micro art, that show up after I colorize them. I just put the whole image up there, so if you wanted to use it as a screensaver or a wallpaper or something, feel free. So let's see. You just realized this stream is about as cool and relaxing as Bob Ross's Twitch stream. Well, I wish I was as popular as Bob Ross's Twitch stream, but you know, I like to keep it pretty calm and cool in here. When my students are around and we do some streams with the students, they usually are a little more silly and energetic, and I actually like those, but we haven't had them, for whatever reason, they haven't been hanging out as much. But this has been a fun stream, and I think these texture things are really fun images. They give you a really great sense of things that you're used to seeing full-sized in the sort of micro scale, and really, really micro scale in these cases. So this is a white ground flower of some type, and it's the petal. And I think, like I said, I started off the stream a little bit later than usual because the filament on the scanning electron microscope burned out on Friday when someone else was using it, and so I had to kind of scramble to get that switched. I think maybe these are the pollen grains for that thing right there. These little, they look so similar to the other ones that we've already seen. This one just looks like a grass pollen, but maybe it's not. There's another one, like little footballs. Yeah, so it started a little bit late. And then we probably won't stream on Saturdays for a little while, as I mentioned, but we'll see how that goes. I'll try to find something for people who can't be around during the weekdays. I'll try to come up with something for you, Anna. I don't know. It's challenging because it eats into my weekend basically as well, and I don't get as much family time because I also have to get a lot of work done over the weekends. So, all right, I think this is going to be the last image that I'll collect. I want to thank Last Miles for the raid. He brought like 100 people in real early in the stream while I was busy doing something else, and I got another big raid from Feck, and I think maybe it was like 10 people, but still good. And it's nice to have all of you with me for today. It's been a nice stream, pretty laid back. We got new follows from Mr. Mogulwe. We got a subscription from Mama Bonbon. Thank you, Mama Bonbon. And also, it's always good to have you around. New follows from Quigless, from Node Tone, from Dog Play Tetris, from Whose Name Is This? Fear Sam, Captain Quinn, Elucidate 123. Thank all of you for following. And let's see, I'm gonna start this picture. I should have already started it. I just was busy chatting. You can see there's a little bit of offset. It's just because the stream, the filaments heating is a little imperfect. Because it's a brand new filament, it probably wore in a little bit while we were streaming. So it won't make a big difference. Okay, so my beard is very Bob Ross-like, but you need to work on the hair. Well, I don't think it's going to get much longer than this, so sorry about that, Blue Booger. They're cool images. Thank you, Geeky. Can the filament get overdriven by application too much power? No, because our SEM only has like a specific range of power, unless you mean like a power surge. That could happen. But they were sitting here using it, and they were collecting an image when it happened, so I'm guessing it just burned out. Sometimes they're not made super well. Oh, I could always rerun a past stream. Yeah, I suppose I could try to do that. It's not really my style. But I have old streams that are around for quite a bit. Okay, so I gave all my thank yous, I think, for people who followed. Had a nice big following. Also, we crossed over 1,500 followers today. So that's a nice new landmark for me. I think we crossed over the 1,000 followers sometime in December. So we've picked up basically 500 followers in the past couple of months, or past 3-4 months. So that is really great. I've been on Twitch for about, I think, 8 months now. So haven't even been here for a year, and I think that's a pretty good progress for us. Okay, enough blabbing. I'm going to find us somebody to raid, because that's how I like to end my streams. And then we'll go get them, and then I'll call it a day. Also, I see from my online friends that Mind of a Snail is here watching, although I haven't seen her say anything yet, neither of them, and also Steve Mandel. So a shout out to you guys, quietly watching or listening to this without saying anything. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Let's see, Wu should raid. I feel like I could raid Volcano Doc, but is she still going? She's been going for 3 hours and 45 minutes. Oh, she just raided somebody. Okay, so she just raided Astro Canuck, which is like another option for us. I don't know. I'm having a hard time deciding. If anybody has a suggestion out there in Twitch land who wants to recommend a target for us to raid, we can do that. Otherwise, we'll also just go get Astro Canuck, and we'll just like double dunk on him. I think that's fine. As long as that's okay with you guys. He's in England, and he streams stuff like astrophotography stuff. So, all right, we'll go get him. since nobody's actually made any other suggestions, and I want to end soon, so all right, we'll see how it goes. But I want to thank everybody for hanging out, and like I said, this has been a fun stream. We got a lot of really nice pictures of pollen, and had some good hangout time. So micro to outer space, yeah, we're going from the very little to the very, very big, right? But it still looks little. It's just up in the sky, right? Because it's very far away. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. And let's see, it's Saturday. Usually you can check out some other microscope streamers. Let me throw this at you real quick. If you're interested in other microscope streamers on Twitch, I have a little squad command right there. Oops, I didn't spell it correctly. Those are some other great microscope streamers that you can check out. Particularly my friends OpenSet and Pacific Plankton and Del Maximum, and of course Freckled Science sometimes does stuff from her camera as well. So thanks everybody for hanging out. Squav. All right, I think we got a raid coming, and we'll see you later, right? Thanks everybody. Have a good weekend.
Diatom's attack.